In at 10, the cast of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is a 1975 comedy drama film based on the 1962 novel of the same name. The plot follows a man who, in order to escape the prison labor, fakes insanity and is shifted to the special ward for the mentally unstable. In this ward, he must rise up against a cruel nurse, Ratched. The cast of the Best Picture winning film, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, included Jack Nicholson. All lived at the psychiatric ward where the movie was filmed, interacting with real patients and undergoing group therapy sessions, some of which were secretly filmed by director Milo Forman without their knowledge. In at 9, Jamie Dornan The Fall. The Fall is a British-Irish crime drama starring Gillian Anderson as Detective Superintendent Stella Gibson and Jamie Dornan as Paul Spector. Now, Dornan wanted to experience the real thrill of the chase in order to get into the character for his role as Paul Spector. So, I quote, "On the tube, I followed a woman off the train one day to see what it felt like to pursue someone like that. Very creepy. That's a lot. Imagine being that woman, being followed by Jamie Dornan, but don't worry, he's just an actor. Still a man following you, isn't it?" Coming in at 8, Sylvester Stallone, Rocky IV. While filming Rocky IV, Stallone asked co-star Dolph Lundgren to try and really knock him out, which is an absolutely terrible idea. Even Stallone later recalled, I quote, "Later that night my blood pressure goes up to 260. I go to the hospital, they put me in an emergency jet and fly me back to America. Next thing I know, I'm in intensive care for 5 days with nuns walking around. He hit my heart so hard that it banged against my ribs and began to swell. And that usually happens in a car accident. So, I was hit by a truck. Bloody hell. Chill out." In at 7, Billy Bob Thornton's Sling Blade. Sling Blade is a 1996 drama written and directed by Billy Bob Thornton. Set in rural Arkansas, the film tells the story of a man named Carl Childers who has an intellectual disability and is released from a psychiatric hospital, where he has lived since killing his mother and her lover when he was 12 years old, and the friendship he develops with the young boy and his mother. Billy Bob Thornton depended on a very unusual and painful method to fully nail his character Carl in the movie. His character had a very unique and signature shuffle, and in order to get it right, Thornton placed crushed glass inside of his shoes, forcing him to limp around. However, it paid off, with the actor earning an Oscar nomination for the role, so pain is gain. In at 6, Nicolas Cage, Birdie. Birdie is a 1984 drama based on William Wharton's 1978 novel of the same name. Set in 1960s Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, the film focuses on the friendship between two teenage boys, Birdie and a Colombato. The story is presented in flashbacks with frame narrative depicting the traumatic experience upon serving in the Vietnam War. Now, in order to physically feel the pain his Vietnam vet character did, Nick Cage had a handful of teeth pulled without anesthesia. He also spent around 5 weeks with his face entirely wrapped in bandages. I quote, "The reactions on the street were brutal, men and women laughing, kids staring. When I took the bandages off, my skin was all infected because of acne and ingrown hairs." In at 5, Val Kilmer, The Doors. In order to secure the part of Jim Morrison in Oliver Stone's The Doors, actor Val Kilmer spent thousands of dollars producing an 8-minute music video of him singing one of the singer's songs. And it worked, because he got the role. But it didn't stop there. Once he booked the job, Kilmer then went on to memorize 50 Doors songs, and even reportedly wore some of Morrison's clothes and frequented his favorite Hollywood hangout spots. The actor also spent hundreds of hours interrogating Paul Rothchild, one of the producers of the rock band and a consultant of the film. By the end of the entire process, Rothchild stated that, I quote, "Kilmer knew Jim Morrison better than Jim ever knew himself." He nailed it to the extent that the Doors themselves had difficulty telling whether it was Val singing or Jim singing. Early on, I'd bring them into a recording studio and I randomly switched Val and Jim, and they guessed wrong 80% of the time. That is insane. Coming in at 4, Daniel Day-Lewis, The Crucible and Gangs of New York. This one is a lot of a lot. The Crucible is a 1996 historical drama movie adapted from the play of the same title, which was inspired by the Salem witchcraft trials. For his role in the film, Daniel Day-Lewis committed to living on the set, which was a replica of a colonial village. Essentially, there was no electricity or running water. He also went on to build his own 17th century house, using only the tools America's settlers would have had available to them at the time. Not too terrible, but things got worse during Gangs of New York. Gangs of New York is of course a 2002 historical film about Amsterdam, a man who sets out to avenge the death of his father, who was killed in a gang fight at the hands of a crime lord, Bill the Butcher. Whilst doing so, he gets caught up in the Civil War. Now, during production, Day-Lewis's devotion to his craft almost cost him his health. He refused to wear a modern-day winter coat on set during filming and in turn caught pneumonia. Yikes. Idiot. In at 3, Adrien Brody, the pianist. Adrien Brody dropped 30 pounds in order to portray Holocaust survivor Vladislav Spilman in the movie The Pianist, and actually learned to play piano, supposedly practicing 4 hours a day every day. However, it didn't end there. Brody decided he needed to feel as lost as Spilman did after he was forced out of the life he knew. I quote, "I gave up my apartment, I sold my car, I disconnected the phones, and I left. I took 2 bags and my keyboard and moved to Europe." As you would expect, his girlfriend at the time dumped him, but the sacrifice was worth it because Brody went on to win the Academy Award for Best Actor at the 2003 Academy Awards. Coming in at 2, Shia LaBeouf, The Necessary Death of Charlie Countryman and Fury. Charlie Countryman is a 2013 American-Romanian romantic drama directed by Frederick Bond in his directorial debut, and starring Shia LaBeouf, Evan Rachel Wood, and Mads Mikkelsen. The plot is simple. In Romania, an American tourist falls for the estranged wife of a brutal gangster. So, when LaBeouf heard that his Charlie Countryman character dropped acid during one particular scene, Shia wanted the scene to be as realistic as possible. So, what did he do? He took LSD, then filmed his trip, and sent the video to his co-star Evan Rachel Wood for feedback. Yeah, I mean, good for him, I guess. But let's discuss Fury. Fury is a 2014 American war film written and directed by David Ayer and starring Brad Pitt, Shia LaBeouf, and Logan Lerman. The film portrays US tank crews in Nazi Germany during the final days of World War II. The day after Shia landed his role in the movie, I quote, "I joined the US National Guard. I was baptized, accepted Christ in my heart, tattooed my surrender, and became a chaplain's assistant to Captain Yates for the 41st Infantry. I spent a month living on a forward operating base. Then I linked up with my cast and went to Fort Irwin. I pulled my tooth out, knifed my face up, and I spent days watching horses die. I didn't bathe for 4 months." It's a lot, even to read out loud. It's a lot to process. And finally, in at number 1, Christian Bale, The Machinist. Christian Bale is known for going hard when it comes to new movie roles, with the actor infamous for drastically gaining and losing weight. The 6-foot-tall Bale famously dropped 60 pounds to play a severe insomniac in the psychological thriller The Machinist, and within just 6 weeks gained it all back for his role in Batman Begins. His Machinist co-star Michael Ironside suggested that Bale had not have gone to such extreme lengths had screenwriter Scott Kozar taken time to alter the script. I quote, "The writer is only about 5'6", and he put his own weights in. And then Chris did the film, and Chris said, 'No, don't change the weights, I want to see if I can make them.' So those weights he writes on the bathroom wall in the film are his actual weights in the film."
Starting off our list at number 10 is Jared Leto for his role as the Joker in Suicide Squad. His other cast members have openly talked about his behavior on the set of the movie. Apparently, he started gifting his co-stars bizarre gifts while in character as the Joker. And when I say weird gifts, I don't mean like random weird things you would find at a dollar store. The madman sent Margot Robbie a rat, like a live rat. He also sent each cast member a dead hog that was dropped off to them by his own personal henchman. To top it all off, he also sent the cast used condoms and anal beads. How messed up is that? The actor claims it was his way of staying in character and he didn't want his co-stars to see him outside of it. The cast says he did a good job at it and has said that they hardly remembered that the Joker and Jared Leto was the same person. His transformation was that good. It was his mission to remain in character at all times, and turns out he succeeded. But like, were the gifts really that necessary? At number 9 we have Christian Bale, who went above and beyond for his role in The Machinist. The thriller drama came out in 2004 and followed the story of a man, Trevor Resnick, who suffers from severe insomnia and psychological issues that led him to an accident. It ultimately leads him to a downward spiral of paranoia and delusion. In order to portray the character the way he wanted, Bale shed 62 pounds before filming. While doing an interview with The Guardian, Bale explained that it wasn't the process of losing the weight that was hard, but the effect it had on him physically and emotionally. He said he was so skinny he could barely walk up a flight of stairs. He felt like he completely abandoned his body. It was like a roller coaster ride. Once he started adding food back into his stomach properly, it just completely rejected it. He also admitted to actually eating just 1 apple a day or a can of tuna, and that was it. He was literally a walking skeleton. This is one diet that I am not open to trying. Swiping our number 8 spot is Tom Hanks, who was more than committed to his role in the movie Castaway. If you haven't seen it, Hank plays a FedEx executive whose plane crashes over the Pacific Ocean and he is left deserted on an island for a total of 4 years. I mean, I can't imagine that's an easy role to play. The actor was committed to get into character and lost 55 pounds before he began filming. He also did all of his scenes on his own, which required him to be in the water for weeks, where he ended up catching an infection that almost led to blood poisoning. The actor even had to undergo surgery to recover from the horrible infection. He continued to finish the film, and I guess it was all worth it in the end because he won a Golden Globe. In the number 7 spot is Leonardo DiCaprio for his role in The Revenant. The movie came out in 2015, where Leo took on the role of Hugh Glass, a man who explores the wilderness alone and faces life-threatening injuries from a bear attack as well as freezing cold temperatures. To prepare and perfect his role, the actor had to go in and out of freezing rivers, which left him with hypothermia. He didn't want to use a stunt double. In fact, he insisted on doing it all himself. Not only did he face insanely cold temperatures, but as a vegetarian, he went against his own values and beliefs and slept in animal carcasses. Not only that, but he went as far as eating raw liver. Even for someone who isn't a vegetarian, that would be so hard and so gross. DiCaprio opened up about his filming experience and said that he got very sick, but it probably made it somewhat worth it since he earned his long overdue Oscar for Best Actor. At number 6 is Joaquin Phoenix for his role in I'm Still Here. No one really knew he was a method actor until he fooled his fans by taking on the appearances and behavior of his character, even off set. While filming, he kept his grungy homeless look and a risky attitude. He basically became a whole new person when doing interviews on late night shows, and he stayed in his character's costume for months. The movie was directed by Casey Affleck and follows Joaquin as he carries out a plan to retire from acting and concentrate on a new career as a hip-hop musician. For a while, fans thought the actor had gone crazy and that this new person he was had a giant chip on his shoulder. They finally realized that it was just part of the film he was doing, but they wondered how long it would take for him to get back to his normal self. The actor admitted how difficult it was to dedicate to him being in character 24/7. He said, "It's like you get lost in yourself." Not to mention, he was taking some heat from people because they thought his new attitude was truly a characteristic of himself. Halfway through our list, at number 5 is Hilary Swank for her role in Boys Don't Cry. The 1999 movie follows the story of a young female-to-male transgender named Brandon Tina. Hilary Swank took on the role and received praise for her incredible performance. The actress went all in for her character and lived as Brandon for months. She wrapped bandages around her breasts, cut her hair, wore prosthetic genitalia, and only answered to the male's name. The role was clearly important to her. Her neighbors actually admitted that they thought she had a brother visiting during the time that she remained in character. She must have wanted that Oscar pretty badly, which is probably why it was her role that gave her the Academy Award for Best Actress. Here we are at number 4 with Robert De Niro for his role as Max Cady in the film Cape Fear. If you haven't seen it, his character was supposed to look like he'd spent a number of years in prison. You would think that some talented makeup artist would be enough, but De Niro had his dentist completely destroy his teeth so that he could look the part. He didn't think his Hollywood pearly whites would be right for this role, so he paid his dentist $20,000 to mess them up. Just the thought of that makes me cringe. Like, just imagine the pain. The pain and healing process would be a nightmare for anyone, but teeth are not something that can just bounce back once they are ruined. He had to go through the same process, if not more, to get his teeth looking back to normal. Talk about dedication. Or insanity. Alright guys, at number 3 is the legendary Heath Ledger for his role as the Joker. I am still a firm believer that no one could ever play this part the way he did. The actor wasn't new to method acting, but he took it more extreme than he ever has when it came to this role. When he spoke to Empire Online from the set of The Dark Knight in 2007, he explained part of his process. He said, and I quote, "I sat around in a hotel room in London for about a month, locked myself away, formed a little diary, and experimented with voices. It was important to try and find a somewhat iconic voice and laugh. I ended up landing more in the realm of a psychopath, someone with very little to no conscience towards his acts. It's believed that this type of process is what actually sent Ledger into clinical depression, which is when he was prescribed medication." On January 22, 2008, less than 6 months before the movie was going to theaters, the actor was found dead in his Manhattan loft. The cause was ruled as an accidental overdose of prescription pills. Rumors began to circulate that it was his role as the Joker that had taken its toll on him, contributing to or even causing his death. In at number 2 is Jim Carrey for his role as Andy Kaufman in the 1999 film Man on the Moon. The actor played the role of the late comedian who was known for his unique characteristics and pranks. But after looking back at the filming process, Jim admits that he was possessed by the comic's spirit. When speaking at the Venice Film Festival premiere, he said, "It was psychotic at times. Jim Carrey didn't even exist at the time. The true author of the project is Andy and his genius. The fact that he committed so completely to what he did really made that possible and made it essential for me to lose myself," which is exactly what he did. A Netflix documentary was made called Jim and Andy, which features behind the scenes footage of the madness Jim went through becoming that character. When the director spoke to him as Jim, he went as far as telling him that Jim isn't there. Even when it came to talking to fans on the streets, Jim remained in character as Andy and at times wouldn't respond kindly or even take pictures with them because he was convinced that he was actually Andy. Taking the number 1 spot on our list is Daniel Day-Lewis for a number of different roles. On multiple occasions, the actor has shown us what crazy extent he will go to ace the part. Nobody beats out this actor when it comes to completely owning their character. While filming My Left Foot, which was the story of a paralyzed poet, Christy Brown, he preferred to be wheelchair bound 24/7. Even though his legs were very much working, he wanted to truly live like a paralyzed poet. Because he was constantly sitting in the wheelchair, it ended up leaving him with 2 broken ribs. He even had all of his meals spoon-fed to him. You bet your bottoms that the actor won an Oscar for that. For his role of Bill the Butcher in Gangs of New York, he also embraced the character intensely. He only talked with a New York accent, even offset. He also began to sharpen knives obsessively and also refused to wear a winter coat even off screen. The actor ended up catching pneumonia, where he refused medication because he said his character at the time would not have access to such things. Starting off the list, number 10 is from the movie Pink Flamingos. Now, I've never seen this movie, and after doing some research, I am really glad about that. Apparently there's a scene in the movie where someone eats dog poop. The actor who had to perform this crazy behavior was a drag queen named Divine, who stars as Babs Johnson, also known as the filthiest person alive. Not only was that scene a little too much and probably unnecessary, it was later revealed that the actor ate real dog feces during the scene. Apparently, she wanted to prove that she really is the filthiest person, and she eats a piece of poop fresh from the dog's booty. Literally. Like in the video, it was fresh and warm. Since then, the scene has become famously known and has completely overshadowed everything else in the film. The actor claims the script told him to, but it did not call for real poop. He could have used a prop. He chose to use the real thing for an authentic performance, and no one can argue that it was taking things way too far. You are not proving anything to me. I would have believed you even if it was fake poop. Like, why would you do that? Up next, number 9 is rape scene in the horror movie The Last House on the Left. The remake came out in 2009 and told the story of a girl named Marie and her friend who gets kidnapped by an escaped convict and his crew. They end up leaving the girls for dead, but one of them survives, and when she finally reaches her home, she realizes that the criminals who kidnapped her and her are taking shelter with her parents inside. It quickly becomes a game of cat and mouse once they realize the people they've taken into their home are the people who tried to kill their daughter. Not only did they try to kill her, but in one scene you see the poor girl get brutally raped. The convict named Krug tries to teach his younger crew member Justin what it is like to be a man, and he forces him to touch Marie inappropriately. He then demonstrates how to her while Justin is forced to sit there and watch as she just cries in agony. The movie is now known for having this sickening scene, which the cast and crew have admitted that it was very difficult to film. Maybe they went just a little too far with this one. Swiping the number 8 spot is from a cult classic, American Beauty. Put aside the fact that the movie is full of incredible performances, it's still a storyline that involves a dad lusting after his teenage daughter's friend. And that in itself can be pushing the envelope with what is too far and what's not. And it is. Actors Kevin Spacey and Mina Savari have to perform a love scene, and it kind of makes me want to throw up a little bit. You can see her vulnerability, and the whole thing is just uncomfortable from the start. Throughout the movie, his lustful fantasies about her are generally played out in some sort of comedic way, so when the real encounter happens, you're kind of just sitting there like, is this really happening right now? The scene is especially not easy to watch in today's world because, as we all know, Kevin Spacey has been charged on multiple sexual charges involving minors. The whole idea of this plot crossed the line if you ask me, but hey, that is just my opinion. It's a good movie, but it's fucked up. In spot number 7 is a moment from the horror movie Evil Dead. Even just by saying the title of the movie, if you've seen it, you probably know the moment I am referring to. The moment when Cheryl gets by a tree. If you haven't seen it, this sounds crazy, because it is. In the scene, she gets bound up by tree branches that tear her arms back as she tries to cover up her bare breasts. The scene was meant to be horrifying and creepy, but also powerful and intense, according to the director, Sam Raimi. He himself admits to having regrets on putting the scene in the movie. I think it was unnecessarily gratuitous and a little too brutal. People were offended, and my goal was not to offend people. It is to entertain, thrill, scare, make them laugh, but not to offend them. Well, you definitely nailed the entertainment, thrill, and scare part, but there is nothing funny or entertaining about this scene, and I think the movie would still be a good scare without it. In at number 6 is Dusty's death scene from Gone Girl. The 2014 movie was incredible, there's no denying that, and that's probably because it totally mind-f***ed like 95% of us. The whole movie was a psychological adventure, and it had multiple scenes that were a little more risque than other ones. But the one scene that takes the cake is the love scene between Amy and Dusty, which ends with his throat being slit. The scene had to happen to fit the storyline of Amy's big plan to frame her husband for murder. The scene was filled with tension from the start. The lust between the two characters was believable, and just when you thought we were going to see the climax of the scene, if you catch my drift, we see Dusty's throat being sliced and the mood quickly changes. Maybe he could have been sleeping when it happened, or maybe she could have like seduced him but like only to first base. I don't know. I get the scene was intense and served a purpose. I'm just wondering if there were any other ideas on the storyboard is all. Maybe. What kind of sex scene is that? Halfway through our countdown, number 5 is 50 Shades of Grey. This movie series definitely pushes the boundaries of what is too far in a sex scene. It's based on the erotic novels written by E.L. James and explores the sexual relationship between a college graduate named Anastasia and a young businessman, Christian Grey. If you don't know about the book or haven't seen the movie, it's famously known for its erotic scenes, which features sexual practices like BDSM, bondage, discipline, dominance, and submission. The movie received a ton of mixed reviews for its racy content and the portrayal of BDSM, especially given the fact that Anastasia is a virgin who has to submit herself to him sexually through this weird written contract. You can imagine that in this generation, that doesn't go over very well. The moment that may have pushed it too far is when we get a close look inside of Christian's playroom, as he calls it. Inside he has a variety of toys, chains, whips, hooks, anything that you can think of really. Things get kinky, they get weird, they get intense, and Anna ends up freaking out after Christian spanks her too hard. Here we are at number 4 with Suspiria, the contortion scene. Let me start off by saying that when the movie debuted at CinemaCon, audience members were throwing up in the theater and some people actually fainted. The movie came out in 2018 and got titled as the most f***ed up movie of the year. There's a lot of evidence to back up those claims, and one of them is the scene when Olga dies. It is one of the most brutal death scenes you will ever watch. It's 10 minutes long and shows Olga's body being controlled by another ballerina's dance movements. So her body contorts into knots, tears her arm out of her socket, and breaks one of her legs and dislocates her jaw, and it ends with her in a grotesque pile of blood, urine, and bones. It's honestly traumatizing to watch, and mainly because it looks so frickin' real. Behind the scenes footage has surfaced since and shows how they use prosthetic and special effects, but it still doesn't make the situation any easier to watch. I mean, you had people throwing up and fainting while watching it. You know it's bad. Alright guys, in our third spot is Raw, a movie that came out back in 2016 and caused a frenzy at its opening night at the Toronto International Film Festival. What started as a Midnight Madness screening soon turned into a medical scene as paramedics were called to treat multiple audience members who had passed out during the screening. The overall premise of the film can be a lot for some people to handle. It basically tells the crazy story of a vegetarian girl who slowly becomes a cannibal. Some of the scenes of her eating live animals and even eating human flesh was just too much for some people to handle at the premiere, and I don't blame them. I get people are passionate about the whole vegan thing, but a movie about a vegetarian turning into a cannibal, you got balls to pull that off. That's just nasty. In spot number 2 is a Human Centipede. All of it. Literally every moment of that movie took things too far. What kind of sick human being are you to come up with a movie plot like this one? If you are unfamiliar with the premise of this sick and twisted movie, a quick Google image search will sum it up for you. Basically, this psychotic German scientist surgeon kidnaps tourists and turns them into a human centipede. He breaks their knees so they are stuck on all fours, then he slits their jaws and sews their mouth to the rear end of the person in front of them, so they are stuck together in succession from mouth to butt. The whole thing is beyond disturbing, but the moment that I really think pushes it over the edge is when we witness one of them having a bowel movement. That is all I'm gonna say about that. And if you haven't watched the movie, let me ruin the ending for you so that you won't have to watch it. The people at the front and the back of the line die, so the movie ends with the girl in the middle just being stuck there with her mouth on a butt and her butt on a mouth. Taking the number 1 spot on our list is a scene from The Antichrist. The movie follows a husband and a wife who are grieving the death of their son after he fell out of a window and died while they were having sex in the other room. The movie is filled with so many graphic sex scenes that it had to be banned in some countries. But one scene is famously known for causing the most controversy of all, and that is when the wife does sickening acts of violence to her and her husband's genitals. Yeah, I can't really go into too many details on that because I don't want to be like banned from YouTube, but the scene caused a lot of controversy. Not only was it extremely graphic and disturbing, but it definitely doesn't fit in the good books with any kind of religion out there. The movie was banned in several countries because of the sexual and violent content. The French court actually banned it 7 years after its release. I'm not sure why it took them that long to realize how messed up it was, but at least it's off their screens now.
Coming in at number 10, Lars Yon Trier, Dancer in the Dark. Lars Yon Trier is notorious for the way he tortures his female actors on set. However, nothing will ever top the drama that unfolded on the set of the 2000 musical Dancer in the Dark, which starred Bjork. According to a profile with GQ, the director admitted Bjork eventually grew so sick of his antics that she would disappear from set for days at a time, and sometimes instead of greeting him, she would spit on the ground and tell him she hated him. Things were apparently so awful on set for Bjork that after wrapping the movie, she vowed to never make another movie again. She has since stuck to her word, which speaks wonders. Years after the film was released, Bjork described what it was like working for the director, stating, "He needs a female to provide his work soul, and he envies them and hates them for it, so he has to destroy them during the film and hide the evidence." Preach, Bjork. Let's never forget the time Lars Yon Trier said he sympathized with Hitler. I'll never forget. Coming in at 9, Josh Trank, Fantastic Four. As you would expect, fans were very excited when it was announced there would be a Fantastic Four reboot with Josh Trank of Chronicle fame set to direct. However, we all quickly found out that he was not the right man for the job and the movie was a critical failure. When the film's start date began approaching, Trank made changes to the movie that started to worry the studio. After these creative differences, Trank upped the ante on his behavior by having one of the biggest and most absurd temper tantrums on set, which was followed by behavior toward the cast and crew. He also reportedly clashed with Miles Teller on set, which supposedly almost resulted in a fistfight, but instead Josh took his anger off set and did $100,000 worth of damage to the residence he was staying at during filming. Wow. Coming in at 8, Francis Ford Coppola, Bram Stoker's Dracula. Francis Ford Coppola is notorious for being quite the difficult filmmaker to work with, however others just describe him as someone who doesn't let people push him around. Regardless, he will go to whatever lengths to make sure his movie is the best it can be, and that he's getting realism from his actors. However, sometimes this doesn't go over so well. Winona Ryder, who starred in Coppola's Dracula, claimed she was the subject of some serious abuse in order to make her cry and have a breakdown during a particular scene. Ryder recalled the moment on E! News about how Keanu Reeves and Coppola shouted horrible things to her, including calling her a whore. Following filming, the actress was understandably drained and felt completely wrecked over the entire ordeal. Coming in at 7, David O. Russell, American Hustle. That rhymed. As this list will tell you, some directors can be way more demanding than others. However, there's a lot of money involved in the business and they have to get the job done. However, certain individuals become so tyrannical during a production that they push people completely over the edge. This is the case with David O. Russell on the set of American Hustle, specifically an incident involving actress Amy Adams. Prior to American Hustle, Adams had previously collaborated with Russell on The Fighter, for which she earned an Academy Award nomination. However, her next encounter with the director is something she later went on to describe as horrendous. The actress did an interview with GQ back in 2016 in which she revealed that the director made her cry on set. There were days the actress felt so emotionally distraught that the stress came home with her. It was also revealed that Adams was so abused one day that co-star Christian Bale had to step in and intervene. And when Christian Bale has to step in, you know shit's bad because he's also an asshole. Coming in at 6, David O. Russell, Three Kings. David O. Russell is back at it again because this dude is apparently horrendous to work with, and it all began back in the 90s on the set of Three Kings. According to reports, the director completely lost his composure on set one day and proceeded to take out his frustrations on everyone on set. This led to several production members being humiliated, and Russell Russell having a major run-in with George Clooney. He also apparently made a script supervisor cry and then physically pushed an extra. He then went on to scream at a cameraman, leaving him extremely embarrassed, and when Clooney attempted to intervene, it resulted in the two having a physical altercation on set, with the actor vowing to never work with Russell again. Nor has he. Don't f with Clooney, he's a silver fox. Coming in at 5, Vincent Gallo, The Brown Bunny. Everyone loves a realistic movie, something that sticks with viewers long after the credits roll. Now, for the most part, the actors don't do their own stunts or nude scenes. However, when they do, it adds a level of authenticity to the project. Director Vincent Gallo attempted to take his indie movie The Brown Bunny to the next level in terms of realism, and critics were shocked with how far the director went. Actress Chloe Sevigny starred alongside Gallo in The Brown Bunny, and at one point in the movie, the two had to become very intimate. Gallo wanted to extract as much realism as possible for the scene in order for the audience to resonate with the intimate moment. So, in order to do this, Gallo had Sevigny actually perform fellatio on him during the shot. This obviously had critics furious, with the film receiving hugely negative reviews. She doesn't actually have to do it in order for it to be realistic. That's why it's a movie, so it's not real, it's fake. So, coming in at 4, Alfred Hitchcock, The Birds and Marnie. The 1960s were a very different time for Hollywood. People could get away with a lot more without being strung out to dry like many people in today's society, because of social media. Everyone's careers can be over in a second. Of course, during the 60s, the greatest director at work was Alfred Hitchcock, known for hits such as Psycho, Strangers on a Train, and Dial M for Murder. However, as most will know, Hitchcock had a dark side, a side that came out on set of both The Birds and Marnie. Star of The Birds, Tippi Hedren, had stated previously that Hitchcock was inappropriate, giving uncomfortable hugs to actresses and incessantly groped her. He apparently sent her a bag of bread with a card that read, "Eat me." It got so out of hand she was forced to go to his wife in order to make him stop, however she did nothing about it. Not to mention, as we all know, the director opted to use real birds on the set of The Birds, which resulted in Hedren being torn up pretty badly. Also, when she rejected his advances, he blacklisted her from Hollywood and she never worked again. Cool. In at 3, John Landis, The Twilight Zone the movie. This is by far one of the worst cases of a director taking things too far on set. It's kinda not his fault, but it kinda is. Twilight Zone the movie was released in the summer of 1983, with the film being based on the hit TV series of the same name. However, Landis' venture ended in tragedy on the last day of production when a helicopter crashed, resulting in the deaths of 2 children and the film's lead. The scene took place during the Vietnam War, where a helicopter chased 2 Vietnamese children. However, the pilot lost control as a result of an explosion going off, leading to the 3 deaths. Landis and the crew members were charged with involuntary manslaughter. This was the first time in history that events during the making of a movie resulted in a director receiving a criminal charge. Worse still, the whole thing is on YouTube and you can watch it. I don't suggest you do because it's very upsetting. In at 2, Quentin Tarantino, Kill Bill Volume 2. Quentin Tarantino is a director known for being a tad eccentric, with his movies always being a bit extreme for the average moviegoer. He is a filmmaker that is known for being incredibly demanding of his actors, pushing them to their limits and sometimes breaking them in the process. However, this process almost cost one actress her life, specifically Uma Thurman in Kill Bill Volume 2. It was revealed by the film stunt coordinator that Thurman was not informed about any stunts happening that day and that the setup was not protocol, resulting in a near-fatal crash. The crash itself is on YouTube and can be watched, but to make matters worse, the director desperately tried to cover it up. Essentially what happens is Uma Thurman is in a car, she's speeding very fast, and then the car crashes, and I think she injured her back. She almost died. It was horrible. She had to be carried out of the car. And finally, at number 1, Bernardo Bertolucci, Last Tango in Paris. Last Tango in Paris is a film known for having one of the most infamous and uncomfortable scenes in movie history. The film starred Marlon Brando, who was in his 40s at the time, alongside Maria Schneider, who was just 19 years old. The scene entailed Brando's character using a stick of butter as a lubricant before forcing himself on Schneider. However, the director wanted the scene to be as authentic as possible and for Schneider to be humiliated. He then publicly acknowledged that he never told Schneider about the scene, meaning that she never consented to the sexual act. The scene in Last Tango in Paris was an actual rape, which is disgusting.